Hello again, everyone. John Collin here with a question that I sometimes see on internet forums or subreddits that people ask in shooting forums. And that is when they go to, say, travel on a business trip or on vacation and they can't bring their gun with them because either they're going to a country that doesn't allow air guns or they just don't want to go through the hassle of bringing it on a plane. What kind of training can they do while they don't have a gun available? And I always thought that was an interesting question because there's a lot of training for air pistol and also for if you do practical shooting like USPSA or any other, say, small bore rifle or things like that. There's a lot of training that should be done without a gun in your hand anyway, and you should be doing these on a regular basis. And today I'm going to talk about what those things are that you should be doing as part of your training if you want to get really good at shooting. And I'm breaking those down into 5 categories: general fitness, shooting specific strength, balance, breathing, and mental training. The first one is the most important one, and that's why I put it first. And the last 2 are ones that a lot of shooters skip. They either don't think about it or don't find it important, but they are very important. So I want to start out with general fitness, and this is one that everyone, even if you're not an athlete, should be focused a lot on. And that breaks up into basically 3 subcategories. And those are cardio health, general strength, and diet. So first up is cardio health, and this one you should be spending a lot of time on. I try to do about 4 days a week of at least 30 to 45 minutes per session of cardio fitness, whether that's on my treadmill, or I also have a rowing machine and I spend some time on that. Or now that it's spring and the weather's getting warm, I'll be doing some running outdoors. Or I also go to the gym. I use the elliptical trainer there or a stair climber, which I don't have at home. And cardio fitness is very important for shooting. If you're doing practical shooting like USPSA, it's pretty obvious, the run and gun type shooting where you do need to be able to run to be able to shoot well. But even if you're doing ISSF where you need to stand still, cardio fitness is important. And the reason is because when you get on the firing line and you start to get nervous, your heart rate is going to spike. And when your heart rate spikes, that's when you're introducing a lot of movement in your hand. I've been nervous in matches and seen my hand start shaking like crazy, and then my scores drop. And funny story, the first time I ever made it far through a final. I had been in a couple of finals before and was out pretty quickly. But the first time I went fairly far through a final, I was in the top 2, and I was up against Blaine Simpson, who is a young, very, very good shooter. One of the nicest guys I've ever met, too. He recently made the USA national team, so congratulations to him. And he and I were neck and neck the whole time. And I looked down at one point. I was just wearing a T-shirt. I didn't have a hoodie like I do now. And I looked down, and I see my heart rate just through my shirt. I was so nervous. I did win. I got the gold medal. It's the first gold medal I ever won. But I was definitely nervous, and I could feel that. So cardio health is important for basically getting your resting heart rate down as much as possible. You really want to be in the 50s or even lower in the 40s as a resting heart rate if you can, because the lower your resting heart rate and the more cardio that you do, then when you do get nervous, your heart rate doesn't spike as much. So you're not going to introduce that movement when you get nervous on a firing line. And if you start doing well in matches, you will get nervous. It can be nerve-wracking, especially when you make a final up against very good shooters and it's really coming down to it. You want to be able to be prepared for that. So cardio fitness is going to be important. And also general strength. General strength does tie into cardio fitness. And I see a lot of people on shooting message boards and such saying, oh, you don't want to lift weights heavy because that'll make your muscles big and then they'll shake more. I completely disagree with that for a few reasons. One, I see a lot of women in particular that say they don't like to lift heavy because they're worried that it's going to make them look like, say, bodybuilders, and they don't want that look. If you look at Olympic women's weightlifters, they don't look like bodybuilders. They would look like someone you might walk past on the street. They might have thighs that are a bit larger than normal, but for the most part, they don't look like they're elite weightlifters, even though they are. Because to get really large, rippling muscles, you have to do very specific training. If you're doing just regular routine at the gym, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12, doing the basic lifts, bench press, squat, and so on, you're not going to get gigantic muscles that take up a lot of energy and will introduce shaking. You will build muscle mass, but that's a good thing. That increases your stability as well. So don't avoid the heavy weightlifting. Get a good gym routine, see a personal trainer maybe, let them know what you're training for, and get a good base general strengthening exercise regimen going. And don't ignore muscle groups either. There's, of course, the old saw, don't skip leg day. You want to have a good, strong base. You really do want strong legs, strong ankles, strong calves, and to be able to get a good base for that. And then, of course, the third part of general fitness is diet. And, of course, on this channel, I do talk about my diet from time to time. The last video I put out was a what I eat in a day video. Don't ignore diet. Have a good diet. Make sure that you are eating what you need to eat, so that will really help you with the overall fitness. Then, the second category is sport-specific strengthening. And this one is doing the type of weightlifting exercises that are very specific to shooting. There might be some that other sports do too, but you do want to do these for strengthening the exact muscles that you're going to use while shooting. Typically, that'll be the shoulders, the wrist, the core. Core is very important pretty much in every sport. And also your lower body as well. So some of the exercises that I do, one that I'll do is I have just a small weight. This is only 6 pounds. You don't want to go any heavier than this. And some people recommend even lighter, like 5 or even down to 3 pounds for this. But what I'll do is I will do an exercise where I start at my waist and then slowly lift up, and my arm will be to the side, the chair's in the way. And I'll slowly lift up. I have a smartwatch that has a metronome on it, so I'll time 4 seconds. So I'll go lift 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll hold 2, 3, 4, lower 2, 3, 4, and I'll do 3 sets of 10 of that. And I will do that with both hands. Always exercise your non-shooting arm as well as your shooting arm. You want to have good balance because you can get a lot of back problems if you aren't exercising your non-shooting side as well as your shooting side. So I'll lift them both up and I'll do 3 sets of 10 of that. Another thing that I'll do is I'll just have a weight in each hand and I'll just hold it to the side for 1 minute at a time. And again, I'll have a timer on my watch or on my phone that'll beep after 1 minute, and then I can take a rest. And I'll do that about 3 times. Another thing that I'll do for grip strength and trigger strength is get a hand gripper, one that has individual fingers like this one does. And I'll do 3 things. One, I won't use my trigger finger. I'll just hold it tight. When you actually shoot, you're not going to hold very tight, but you do want to have a strong grip. So when you do this for an amount of time, then when you actually hold a gun in your hand, you don't have to grip very tightly to be able to have a strong grip. You do want to be able to exercise that. Another thing is, particularly for pistol, when you hold the gun, you want to pinch a little bit. That way you don't introduce side movement. So I'll hold it like this, and I'll pinch it between my thumb and my index finger like that. And I'll hold that for a time. And then you can exercise your trigger finger as well. This one you don't have to hold for as long. And you do want to have a fairly strong trigger finger so the trigger feels lighter, so you're not really, if you get what's called chicken fingers when you're holding at the line, that trigger feels like it weighs 10 pounds sometimes. So if you have a strong trigger finger, you won't get that as much. So I do use this most every day. And then another thing I do for wrist strength is a gyro ball. And you'll see these are about $20. You can get them online or at most sporting goods stores. And what you do is they have a weight inside, a ring weight. And you put a string in it. When you pull on it, it's a gyroscope. And you'll actually hear it. I'll put it up to the microphone so you can actually hear it. And it'll start to buzz after a while. And the trick is with your wrist, you're keeping it going. Now you're going to start to hear it buzz. You're trying to keep it going. It actually kind of does tire you out. I try and do this for about 15 minutes a day. And you want to spend some time getting it going and then hold it at arm's length and try and prevent it from moving. And this is not easy to do. If I relax, it'll move a lot, but if I really hold my wrist. So when you're shooting at the firing line with a pistol, you want to have your wrist muscles engaged so that way you don't introduce any movement. So if you have a solid grip and a solid wrist, the sights will stay perfect for you every time. And another thing that I do for some sport-specific strengthening is balance. And this is the next category is balance training. So I do have a balance board, a wobble board, and there are some other things that you can get. Like there's some that have like a belt that strings across, and you stand on the belt, kind of like you're standing on a tightrope. Those work too. And there are various exercises you can do with this. Some involve just standing on the board. I'll do one where all I do is stand on the board. You can also stand on the board and try to lift even dry fire on a target. I don't recommend actually shooting pellets while standing on a balance board unless you're quite good and able to hit the target every time. Or if you have a good backstop that you don't mind getting hit with a lot of pellets, you can do that too. Also, there are a few other things that I do. I stand on one leg on the balance board. That's a bit more advanced if you're able to do that. Another one that's harder than it sounds is to stand and close your eyes as you're doing that. It's harder than it sounds. You'll be standing, everything feels fine, then you close your eyes and all of a sudden you're tilted. You want to be able to close your eyes, that way you're not using visual cues to balance yourself, because your vision should be laser focused on your front sight. So you want to be able to keep your balance while not using visual cues to balance yourself. And another thing that I do is I'll stand on the balance board and very slowly, it's hard to do fast, but you want to do it very slowly, is deep knee bends. Go down as much as you can and then stand back up without the board hitting the ground. And that will help you out with your stability as you're shooting on the firing line. Because balance is a really important thing that gets neglected a lot with shooters. But, you know, for me, I can very often tend to sway back and forth. My coaches shoot me out about that one more than once. He says, "You're swaying back and forth. Don't do that." So if you have good balance, that'll prevent you from doing that. And another thing that helps with balance, and this one kind of falls under this, but also under the sports-specific strength, is your core training. Core is very important in balance, and you want to build up your core strength as much as possible. The best way to do that is with planks. Planks, everyone hates them. I hate them. But if you can do planks for a long time, up to a minute, 2 minutes, and do that a few times a day, at least 3 days a week, then that's going to be good for building up your core stability. And that will help with your balance as well. So now we're going to get to the last two categories that are often neglected by people because they often don't see the value of it, or they might think it's kind of new age. And to be fair, a lot of the things that you find that are there to guide you through this can be a bit new agey, but they are important. And one is breathing. If you've ever taken any sort of singing training or acting training, you've learned a lot about breathing there. And it's very important for shooting because it can help you with your nerves. It can help you with your heart rate. It can keep your heart rate down. And there's a couple of exercises that you can do. One is called box breathing. Some of you may have heard of this before. And the reason that it's called box breathing is because it's a cycle that simulates the edges of a box. What you'll do is you'll inhale for 4 seconds. So you can either find a guided box breathing on YouTube. There's several resources there. Or you can just use a metronome or just make your own recording where you will spend 4 seconds inhaling. And then after 4 seconds, you'll just hold. And you'll try not to like close off your airway, but you'll just try and use your diaphragm to prevent air from going in or out without closing up your airway. You know, most people, when they hold their breath, they're like, try not to do that. Be very relaxed. So you're going to inhale for 4 seconds, hold there, just let the breath hover for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold it there for 4 seconds. And that simulates the edges of a box. I try and do that for about 10 minutes, maybe 3 days a week. And that's very useful for helping you control your breath. And during matches, if I feel myself getting a bit tense or nervous, I might sit down, or even while standing at the firing line, I'll try and do box breathing, and that'll help me get my heart rate down. The other thing, too, with breathing that will help you get your heart rate down is practice belly breathing. Most people, when they breathe, they'll breathe with their chest, like that. What you want to do is practice deep breathing, but engaging your diaphragm. So you can sit down or lie down, say on a yoga mat or on a couch or something. Put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, and practice taking deep breaths without letting the hand on your chest move, and only using your belly. If you've ever taken singing training, you've already done this many times and you're quite good at it. So practice that for a few minutes a day as well, because it is important, because when you're standing on the firing line, when people get nervous, they're going to breathe like that, and that's only going to cause your heart rate to go up. If you can control your breathing, control letting it breathe only with your diaphragm, that will help your heart rate to settle. And then that brings us to the last category, which is the mental training. So breathing is kind of part of mental training, but mental training is separate. And again, a lot of people ignore this because they find it to be a bit on the new agey side, but it is useful. And one of those is meditation. Meditation isn't what most people think it is. It's not like, you're thinking about something. Basically what meditation is it's an attempt to stop thought. Because what happens when you're nervous on a firing line? You're thinking, I need to get a 10 on this shot to get a good score. No, you don't want to be thinking about that. You want your brain to stop thinking. And what meditation is, a good basic meditation, this is a good beginner one for most people, is to count your breaths. What you do is you sit down in a chair, get yourself comfortable, and you can either close your eyes or half close your eyes. Some people don't recommend closing your eyes because people might fall asleep. It happens. And you'll count your breaths. So what you'll do is you'll inhale and count 1. Exhale and count 2. Inhale, count 3. Exhale, count 4. And you'll do that until you count to 10, and then you'll start over. And the idea is that you're focusing only on your breaths and only on the counting. If other thoughts come in, if you're thinking about, I got a bill to pay this week or something like that, work on catching yourself thinking about that and just letting the thought evaporate. It's difficult to do at first, and it does take a while to get used to that. I still have intrusive thoughts come in while I'm meditating. But with practice, you learn how to catch it, and you learn how to just let it go. And the idea is, during the meditation session, as much as possible, you're only focusing on your breath and counting the breath. And set a timer. I try and do that for about 10 or 15 minutes. There's various apps or YouTube videos where you can put some background calming noises. Either it's calming music or beach sounds or rain sounds, things like that. And those can help as well. And the idea is really just to tune out the world and to be aware of things without judging them. So if you have a thought come into your head, you're aware of it. You're not judging it. You're just letting it go. And that is something you want to practice. And that's something that you can do on a business trip. Can help you get to sleep too, is learning how to clear your mind like that. Kind of the opposite end of that is visualization. Visualization is a useful thing. You can do this either just sitting on its own thing, or you can do it on a firing line. It's basically you're closing your eyes and visualizing what the perfect shot process feels like and looks like to you. And one thing you can do is just, I've seen some shooters say they visualize an entire 60 shot match. I can't do that. If you can, great on you. You can go a whole hour doing that. Or just what you can do is stand at the firing line, put your gun down, close your eyes, visualize a perfect shot. And then you can open eyes and try and replicate that. And of course, if you're on a business trip or something where you don't have a gun available, you won't be doing that. But you can just sit in a chair and spend 5 minutes visualizing, say, 5 perfect shots, perfect shot processes, perfect trigger pull, perfect everything, and just really focus on what that feels like. And then the last mental training thing that you can do, some people don't like to do this. I got the idea from the book With Winning in Mind. It's written by a shooter, Lenny Basham. He won a gold medal in, I believe it was the 1976 Olympics. And he basically says what you do is you write your goals as though you've already achieved them. So I would write, okay, my goal is to make Team Canada and make the Olympics. So he basically says, just repeat it as an affirmation. I am on Team Canada and I am competing in the Olympics. Some people, that works for them, just pretend like you've already made it. And then when you're on the firing line, if you shoot a 10 or something like that, some people get kind of excited. They say, oh, I shot a 10, or they shoot several 10s in a row and the nerves start to come in. And instead you just say, oh, that's so like me. So that you can tie that in with your visualization exercises. You visualize a perfect 10. You look down at the scoreboard you're imagining. You see a perfect 10. And you say, oh, that's so like me. Some people that works really well for them. Some it doesn't. But it's definitely worth trying. Basically, the idea is to get yourself in a frame of mind where you expect good results. I've often said the 2 worst things that can happen to a shooter are they're either shooting very poorly or shooting very well. Because when you're shooting very well, you start to think about it a lot. As a matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago I broke my personal best and hit a big milestone, 570 points. That's a pretty important milestone. Because to get in the Olympics, 575, high 570s is about where you want to be. And I'm hitting 570, so I'm getting closer. But the last shot, I was at 562. So I'm thinking about it. I'm trying hard not to think about it, but my hand is shaking, and I hit an 8. And I said, okay, I made the milestone. I got my personal best. Now I don't have to worry about it as much. So now when I approach 570 again, I won't be as nervous because I'll know, hey, I already got that once. So don't ignore the mental training. Make sure that you're spending some time on that, because that can really make or break you in the big matches. So that's it. If you have any additional ideas, go ahead and comment with them. I'd love to see what kinds of trainings that other people do without a gun in their hand, and what kinds of things help them, especially when it comes to the mental training. Or if you have any particular cardio or strength training workout plans that you do, I'd love to see those as well. Until then, happy shooting, and I look forward to seeing you again.